A biggie.
Hello and welcome back to another episode on Fisherrmanfan World. And as requested, I will be talking about my setup that I personally use for freshwater luring. And I'll be breaking this up into 4 videos. And for today, I will be talking about lures. So I will be talking about the lures that I use, how I work them, and when I use them. First, to start off, this is purely my own personal opinion and my approach that I adopt. Not biased and no bullshit. To start off, let me debunk some myth. So from time to time, I always hear people asking, hey, what's the best lure to catch peacock bass or like toman, etc. So after fishing for a while, I have learned that there is in fact no such thing as a best lure to catch a certain species of fish. In fact, there are only lures that are best made for the different scenarios that you come face to face with. Whether is it a sunny day or cloudy day, windy day, rainy day, or is it really clear water or like murky conditions. Okay, so now I will run you through my thought process when selecting my lures before my fishing trip. So these are all the lures that I have, and I only have 2 lure boxes. So I like to travel light and as minimal as possible in case,
Why are you running? Why are you...
Okay, so back to the topic. Where was I? Right. So I'm usually occupied on the weekdays and I can only go out to fish on my weekends. So 99% of the time, I would choose to go on a first light mission. Wake up early, 5-6 am for the early bird catches the worm. So here are the benefits of fishing first light. Firstly, the water is calm, meaning it's less windy, you can spot more rises, and it's definitely the most thrilling time of the day. Because calm water equates to throwing those topwater lures, and to anticipate a topwater explosion visually is just mental. Next, there are definitely fewer anglers out there. Just think of the number of times you have been ghosted by that friend who didn't manage to wake up early. It's just not easy. And lastly, it's something different about fishing in the morning. It sets your mood for the day, and also if you've been to the jungle to fish and all, the water is usually most clear then, and the morning dew air is just refreshing. Okay, so I shall cut the bullshit and actually start talking about the lures that I pick. So depending where I fish at, it determines what lure I use. So I'll start off by talking about open waters first. The tip about open waters is that the fish can literally be anywhere and everywhere, so you have to be strategic. Okay, so here's what I do. Imagine it's 7 am, the water is calm, the sun is rising, the water slowly gets heated up, the fishes are getting into feeding frenzy mode. So imagine those feisty and hungry big bass and snakehead out there. You need something to entice them and attract their attention. So for me, what I usually do is to throw topwater lures. And my favorite would be, as mentioned, the dual pencil or the Aima litter stick or shower blow. Okay, I'll start off by talking about walk the dog action lures. I have no idea why it's called walk the dog, but it's probably because, when you walk dogs, they like to walk to the left and to the right. So similarly, these lures are designed to walk left, right in the water. Some have very loud bearings inside, some spit out water when you walk it, imitating some fry ball or like some injured fish flailing around. However, the cons about these walk the dog action lures is that it gets tiring after making many casts and not getting any bite. It gets tiring and demoralizing. However, it does not necessarily mean that the fishes aren't there. It just means that they aren't biting sometimes, and so after working my walk the dog action lures for a while, I would mix up the tempo, maybe throwing a faster moving bait such as a prop bait, or maybe if I'm feeling more chill, I would swap it up to a popper. Okay, so here are some prop baits that I have, and as the name suggests, prop baits are actually propeller baits. So as you work the lure, these moving parts will propel through the water, creating commotion and making lots of noise. Prop baits are generally very easy to use. Just a straight retrieve would usually suffice, and some interesting facts about these prop baits that I have. The slower that you retrieve it, the louder and more attractive it gets. The downside about these prop baits is that they usually have flaps or like moving parts that get in the way when you cast, so you aren't able to get the ultimate distance as compared to a pencil. Okay, so moving on to poppers. What are poppers? Poppers are basically lures with a cup-shaped mouth, and the action that you get from working the lure is that water will be pushed against the mouth when you retrieve it, pushing water in the direction that the lure is going. So there's a lot of commotion, and after which the lure would sit perfectly in the water, nicely suspended and waiting for a bite. So working a popper is all about mixing up the different rhythm and tempo. You can chuck, pause and chuck. You can chuck, chuck, pause, or you could chuck, pause, pause and chuck. Okay, so the great fun about lure fishing is that you never know what the fishes will take that day or what they like, because we don't speak fish language, duh. So the great fun comes about exploring the different methods there is. So what I would say is, for those that have not tried throwing a topwater lure, you should really try it one day because it's really fun. My advice for you is to never stop casting a topwater lure, because sooner or later, you will definitely get a hit. Okay, so having said all that, due to the short span of time I have out there on the water, I get demoralized very quickly, and after not getting any bites, I would usually swap to throwing soft plastics, minnows or vibes. To begin with, minnows are a good imitation of bait fish due to the way they are made and the way that they look. They cover different depths of water column in the water, as their diving range are usually restricted by the way that they are made. So lipless minnows generally work in the subsurface to mid-surface range, while lipped minnows generally dive deeper due to the resistance against the water. Though this is not a hard and fast rule to minnows, because there are some minnows that are lipless, but they dive deep because of the fact that they sink. So it's all about the different buoyancy that they have. And in fact, there are some minnows that suspend perfectly in the water when you work it. These are suspending jerkbaits. For the lipless minnows that I have, I usually work them with a straight retrieve. They have a very tight, wobbling action, very nice and very attractive to predatory fish. On the other hand, for the lipped minnows that I have, I prefer to use it in a clear water situation where I can work it like a jerkbait, whereas you wouldn't want to work it in a weedy situation because you will end up snagging a lot of beads, and you have to spend a lot of time removing the beads as well. So there are many different types of ways to work a jerkbait, and depending on the water column and how deep that they go, the best are usually waiting at the drop-off, waiting to strike. So the erratic and sudden twitches would definitely fire up some reaction bites from the bass. Next up, I'll be talking about one of the most versatile lure out there, soft plastic lures. They can be rigged up in so many different ways, with a weedless worm hook or with a jig head. There's Texas rig, there's Carolina rig, there's Nico rig. The possibility is endless. The most common soft plastic you'll see out there is one with a tail, for obvious reasons, which is to resemble a fish, though there are some made to imitate a worm, prawn, and grub, and so on. There are different soft plastics with different types of tail, which all ultimately serve the same purpose, of looking more like a fish, but just taking up different forms. Here I have some for show. I have a paddle tail, a curly tail, a straight tail, all having different but similar action just to make it look more lifelike. Fun fact, some soft plastic have ribs which sends vibration through the water when being retrieved, allowing bass to detect them with their sensory lateral lines. When you are fishing in pressure waters where fishes get spooked so easily, and they don't even give hard body lures a second look, throwing those soft plastics could sometimes be the turning point. And here's a pro tip. Downsizing the rubbers will definitely improve your chances on those finicky bass. On top of all that, they can really be used to fish almost every single condition out there. You can find floating, sinking, or even topwater soft plastics. You can easily vary the depth in which the lure swims by adding weights. You can work the lure fast, you can work the lure slow. Usually soft plastics are rigged with a single hook, and that means you are less likely to get snagged with weeds and rock. There are just so many methods to work the lure, from dragging on the riverbed, bouncing on the riverbed, hopping it, a straight retrieve, retrieving it with twitches, etc. Okay, so now I'm done with talking about how I work my lures during first light. I'll now share on how I work my way through last light, which is similar, just that the order is reversed. I will start by playing soft plastics and minnows all the way until about 6:30 PM when the sun is setting and the water gets calmer. So that's when I'll chuck on a big topwater lure and throw it out there, hoping for the best. Lastly, when it comes to jungle fishing, it's really a different level of fishing, as you need to overcome obstacles such as tree structures and tight spaces in order to get your lure out there. My advice for you is, unless you're very proficient and accurate with your casting, and you know the terrain and structure really well, I would advise you to start off by throwing reedless lures such as frogs or soft plastics, or even lures with single hook so as to reduce the chances of you getting snagged and stuck, and ultimately having to burst your line. Not knowing which is worse though, having to retire a leader line or losing a lure. Let me know in the comments below. But I'm sure that will definitely make you a better angler from all that retying. If not, keep experimenting what works best for you, and I'm sure you'll figure out a fishing style that works your way and catches you many fish. Stay tuned for my next video, in which I'll be talking about the fishing lines that I use and the knots that I tie. If you have enjoyed watching today's video and found that you have learned something new, do let me know in the comment section below, and tight lines.